he's currently in the top 10 places, but he's not going to stay there very long if he keeps going the way he did yesterday. He played 3 matches and lost them all. Only won a total of 6 racks along the way.
You were making the point before we started, Michael, this could easily have been the US Open final.
Yeah, Aloysius Yapp did reach the final, and we went pretty close. Got to the last 4 and was beaten only 11-9 by Carlo Biado, who then, of course, went on to beat Yapp in that US Open final in Atlantic City.
There's been one common thread on all 3 mornings. I've walked down from my hotel room into the arena, into the facility we're using, the MK Stadium Ballroom. The one common thread is that on the practice table, no matter what time you arrive, is Naoyuki Oi. Now, that might be more a coefficient of jet lag than dedication, but I do suspect he practices hard.
Yeah, it's funny that actually there are some players who you really notice seem to spend more time on the practice table than others. Aloysius Yapp yesterday actually was on there for a really long time, and some of them have been practicing with other players. He seemed to be working on his own a lot, and it was like he had particular things he just wanted to sort out, because he looked pretty downbeat for much of yesterday, Yapp. He lost all 4 of his matches. He lost 2 of the 3 he'd played on Monday. So when we do get to see him come to the table in this match, it'll be interesting to see if he's managed to find something. David Al-Kaidi and Kelly Fisher, just to say, have started on the other table. Al-Kaidi going very nicely with 5 wins out of 6. And as you said, Phil, Fisher proving herself more than capable in this company. 3 wins from her 5 so far, so we'll keep an eye on that one.
This is the big shot you would think in this rack. Kept it simple. Didn't want to make any unwanted collision into that 8-ball. That said, though, this kind of 6-ball is missable, and when you're cutting them so thin, control of the cue ball is compromised. On this fast table, he's judged that pretty well. Didn't want to underhit the cue ball and leave a really thin cut. Certainly didn't want to overhit it and leave the white under the bottom cushion. I'll tell you what, there was an awful lot of body movement in that. It was a shoulder shot. The 8 only just went in. The 9 followed. Oi, 1-0 up. But technically there, that was flawed on the penultimate ball.
Yeah, it's easy to look at Oi and actually spot technical flaws a lot of the time, but gets the job done. He's a bit like a golfer with an unorthodox swing at times. David Al-Kaidi looked increasingly solid as yesterday went on. Almost won the Championship League that was played here round about this time last year. Runner-up to Alban Ocean.
This rack, I thought that Fisher was going to lose it when she played an ineffective safety on the 2-ball. But she's still in there battling.
Yeah, tough day for Kelly Fisher. Obviously, David Al-Kaidi, one of the very best players in the world, is one of her opponents. She's got 4 matches in total. Joshua Filler is also lined up to face her, but given the way she's performed, nothing to fear from anyone.
2-0 in favor of Mr. Oi. Mr. Yapp, 2 rack, 2 break.
So Oi on the opening rack, but it's alternate break, and so Yapp's breaking off in the second. And leaves the table, Michael.
Yeah, well, I was talking about all that solo practice work he was doing yesterday, hoping to find something. Obviously, he may yet, but dry break is the very opposite of the way you want to start things off.
Well-held cue ball.
Yeah, he's only played one shot, had the dry break from it, now finds himself in a little bit of difficulty here. Might be thinking, here we go again. Well, the shoulder slumped a bit there as the cue ball caught the knuckle of the side pocket. But the four may have come to his rescue here. Don't think he's left the one on. Oh, clearly not, you can see. Aloysius Yapp, 25 years of age. Had a lot of success at junior level. Won the World Under-19 Championship as far back as 2014. And real signs throughout 2021 that he was getting close to delivering on all that promise. It was a very productive year for him. Talked about that US Open run. Also the semi-finals of the World 10 Ball. And won a big 10 ball event in Michigan straight off the back of his exploits at the US Open. And you add in run to the last 16 of the World 9 Ball. A lot of success over the last 12 months for Yapp to build on.
10 seconds.
Not always the case, but normally when in cue sports you suffer an unwanted double kiss, it can be damaging, and it certainly was there. He really does look the part, Yapp. When he did so well in the US Open, it was notable that his success was being well reported back home in Singapore in the famous Straits Times newspaper. Several articles in there as he progressed through the field.
10 seconds.
All those time zones and miles away in Atlantic City.
Yeah, and sometimes when you have players in any sport really having slightly unexpected runs to the business end of big events, they get helped a little bit by the draw along the way. Well, I don't think that could be said about Yapp. His victims included Joshua Filler and Shane Van Boening in consecutive rounds, and he beat them both comfortably.
The Japanese jester, Naoyuki, all business here. Flirted with disappointment.
Well, when he came to the table after that double kiss from Oi, it looked like a decent chance. Not all the opportunities he gets today will be as promising as this one, but he's at least got to take advantage of pretty much all of these sort of situations if he's to start turning this around after the dismal run of results he's had over the first couple of days. Got to at least get the basic elements of the game right.
Well, he couldn't do an awful lot in terms of displacement of 5 and 8.
Yeah. Hadn't put himself where he wanted to be to try and develop this situation.
10 seconds.
It's just gradually building up over the last couple of shots. His attempt to recover the situation has only resulted in handing a really good chance to Oy. And the 5 and the 8 being tied up together like that, Phil, that was the obvious stumbling block. But you're not going to get many better chances than the one he had.
If you're looking at that from a snooker perspective, you might think, well, that was a little ambitious, aggressive, foolhardy. But I think the bank definitely worked, just not quite executed accurately enough. Naoyuki Oy just about to double his lead here. While on the other table, David Al-Qaedi is going to equalise surely against Kelly Fisher. It's going to be 1-1 on table 2. 2-0 on table 1 in favour of Naoyuki Oy. Now, both of these two players are involved in a very exciting announcement this morning. We can confirm the dates, the venue, and the vast majority of the field for the World Pool Masters. It will take place in Gibraltar, 5th to the 8th of May at the Europa Sports Park, right on the edge of the peninsula there. It is a stunning place. It really is, and it's going to be a stunning tournament. 24 players will contest that tournament, which has a total prize fund of $100,000. We know 20 of them already. It's the top 20 of the Nineball rankings. And right now, Aloysius Yapp is number 6. Naoyuki Oy is number 7. So they will be making the trip down to Gibraltar. It's a great tournament, Michael, with so much history.
Yeah, it's great that there are so many more open events now and 2 new ones coming on stream, UK Open and European Open this year. But it's also important to have those elite events.
Rack number 3.
And it's great now that there's a pathway. We have the ranking system, so any player can come in, play in the Euro Tour events, the Open tournaments that we have. And if you get the results in those, the World Pool Masters and events like it, it's where you end up.
One thing I have to say, 3 players confirmed, accepted for the World Pool Masters who aren't involved here. And this is really exciting. 3 players from Chinese Taipei. Ko Ping-chung, Ko Pin-yi, the 2 brothers, and Chang Zhonglin.
Well, we were saying this just the other day, weren't we? How it's been a great 12 months or so for pool. And that's without so many of the players like the ones you've just named there. Obviously, with everything that's been going on and travel difficulties and restrictions, so many of the players have had to sit out this new age of opportunity, but that's gradually going to start to turn around now. When that happens, we could be in for an even better 12 months than what we've just had. So fantastic to see those guys there in the field. And I was just thinking as we looked at that promotional picture there with the players in it, just highlights how international the game is when you consider the broad range of countries those 5 players in that photo come from. And when you look down the field, really is so global. And it certainly has that advantage over any of the other cue sports in terms of its worldwide spread.
Oy in suspended
Extension, please.
animation. Not happy. Taking his extension. I think it was more to do with the quality of the stroke there more than anything else. The result wasn't too damaging, was it? Oh, but the next shot was. He just didn't fancy the 7, clearly.
Yeah, and we've seen this a few times from him. Sometimes when he's not happy with the previous shot, he doesn't get it out of his head quickly enough. And that's nothing to do with the tighter pockets. You can see how far off target he was. So Yapp Would have been fearing the worst there. Expecting he was going 3-0 down. But instead, he's going to get off the mark. And of course, he'll have the break in the next rack. It's amazing how quickly the whole complexion of the match can change.
Naoyuki hating missing that 7. Really, he knows it should have been 3-0. In actuality, Oi's lead has been cut to 2-1. More pool coming up after the break. Naoyuki head in hand.
Rack.
Because of that, the missed 7 ball, the grossly overcut 7 ball that cost him the 3rd rack and cost him momentum.
Rack number 4. Our current score is 2-1 in favor of Mr. Oi. Mr. Yapp to break.
I like the way that John Lehman, our referee, always calls the players Mr. This and Mr. That.
Yeah, he's very old school in that way. Comes from the acting world, of course. I think he just likes building the drama, building the tension and making announcements.
That's how the starter would have referred to the great Bobby Jones, the golfer. The last unbelievable amateur in that game. Mr. Jones, he would have been called.
Well, in the same game, of course, Arnold Palmer was always informally known as Mr. Palmer. Was never announced as such, but yeah, nice to have that bit of respect being shown. Very old school.
Yeah, you and I have both met him, Michael, the great man. So sad when he passed away.
Yeah, it was in Ryder Cup week as well, I seem to remember. I do remember when I went up and approached him for an interview. I did call him Arnold, but my instinct was to say, excuse me, please, Mr. Palmer.
Well, the only player I've ever referred to as Mr. in snooker was Fred Davis, the multiple world champion, who played until he was well into his 70s. And I was a rookie on the tour covering the game then, and I just couldn't get myself to call him Fred, so I always used to call him Mr. Davis.
Worth pointing out there that Yapp has now had 2 breaks and both been dry.
I think it's also worth pointing out that if you like to have a small wager on whitewashes in these matches, well, you've got empty pockets, because at the end of the 2 matches currently on, it's going to be 50 matches completed with one 5-0 whitewash. David Al-Qaedi over Francisco Sanchez Ruiz early on the opening day. One whitewash in 50.
10 seconds.
Yeah, even with the alternate break format as opposed to the winner breaks format that we have in some events, that really is surprising.
He's a quiet individual, David Al-Qaedi, goes about his business
Attention, please.
in a very unassuming way. And stealthily, he's climbing this table and looking really good. He now leads Kelly Fisher by 2 racks to 1. I don't know whether it's the pressure of the situation, whether it's because he lost those matches yesterday and he feels as though he's got to make amends. But there's an awful lot of movement.
Oh, yeah. Flung himself at that one. I think they both look like guys who are feeling the pressure. Oy, obviously in a better situation in the table. But he had a bad day yesterday, just like Yapp.
And there's no doubt about it, Yapp is more technically defendable, much more orthodox.
Yeah, and that may come into it if this goes close. Pressure is at its peak.
That is the full caboodle. Handcuffs ×2.
Yeah, excellent shot that. This could be the rack right here. Oh, he needs to pull off some sort of miracle, really, or Yapp is going to have a great chance for 2-2.
Foul.
Yeah, you know, normally when you hook someone in 9-ball pool, basically it's a means to an end. It gives you the chance, if they make contact but leave one on. There, the likelihood was that Oy was going to make no contact because the escape route was so complex. And therefore, Yapp would have ball in hand. And that's exactly what's transpired.
Gotta say, I was fearing the worst for him when he passed up that opportunity in the second rack. Okay, he had the 5 and the 8 conundrum to sort out, but you come to the table with all the balls there, it's generally going to be something like that you have to deal with along the way. As I was saying, he needs to make the most of every opportunity that comes his way today, really. Needs a good day, or he's going to go into the penultimate day of this first phase in a fairly hopeless situation.
It's not so much, as Michael was saying, not so much the fact he's only won 1 match so far, it's the fact he's played 7 matches. No one has played more.
Yeah, he'll be the first player to get past the halfway point in terms of the 15-match schedule they all have to complete in the 5 days. Ooh, that 6 gave him just half a second of anxiety.
Yeah, it's not recommended to hit that near jaw when you're playing that kind of shot. We saw it yesterday. So many of them hang up. Well, the 7 cost Oi dear
10 seconds.
in the preceding rack. No such issues for Yapp. Although the side off the second cushion has given him distance. This is missable.
Well, those shots on the 7 and the 8, just the sort of thing that would test your nerve and composure. And he's come through well, and now is a routine 9 to complete the comeback from 2-0 down to all square.
Yes, all square it is. Naoyuki Oi has to reset and go again. He'll be feeling not too clever, I can tell you right now. Don't think it's going to be 2-2 on the other table, though. David Al-Kadi nicely set to pop the remaining 3 balls and take a 3-1 lead over Kelly Fisher.
Yeah, you were absolutely right in what you were saying about Al-Kadi earlier. He is unassuming, quiet chap, but I sense there's a quiet confidence at the heart of all that, and that he's very aware what a good player he is. If anything, he might feel he should have achieved a bit more in the game by now. He looks like he's barely out of school, much older than he looks. Been around longer than most of these players. And he's got a great record in that World Masters we were talking about.
Well, I think he's dramatic win over Alexander Kazakis when he doubled the 9-ball length of the table to win 9-8. That was one of the great finals in any tournament. He didn't double that 9-ball, just knocked it in conventionally. David Al-Kadi leads Kelly Fisher 3-1, and just in time to get back to table 1 to see the break-off in rack 5. By the way, on the subject of score, progressions, as we see Oi make an absolutely delightful break-off. I can tell you, 5-1 isn't too popular. Only 8 times that's occurred. The most popular scoreline thus far is 5-3. Right now, if you give Oi a 5-3 win, he'd snap your hand off. Must say that break-off, though, worked a treat for him.
Yeah, fair to say he's mastering the break better than Yapp so far in this match. All that movement and the little technical flaws we talk about, you might look at it, Phil, and say, well, those are things he's going to have to iron out if he wants to end up winning the very biggest titles in the sport. But at the age of 39, it's probably more a case of just living with it and reminding himself that he's overcome those various shortcomings to build a very good career in the game and just carry on as he is.
Yeah, you're right. There's no way he's going to change. Movement creeps in the older you get, generally speaking. So erasing it at Oi's age is highly unlikely.
Well, people used to talk about Tony Drago, who of course was a top player in both pool and snooker and unbelievably fast. And it was often said, oh, if he slowed down a bit, you know, he wouldn't miss quite so many unexpected balls. But equally so, he would have lost so much from his game as well. So there's simply no way anyone was going to put any restraints on him. Got to play your natural game in the end. And another very competent breaking rack restores Oi's lead.
Indeed it does. And that's just what he needed, actually. Some quality table time. Going to be no break and run out on the other table. Could be quite a hard-fought rack, this. The only out in this rack is a push-out. Important match for David Al-Qaedi. If he wins it, temporarily at least, he'd be the table topper. Well, the push out backfired. We'll keep you up to date with what happened on table 2 in rack 5. Now it's back to Yapp and Oi.
2 dry breaks so far for the man from Singapore. Well, we were talking about him doing quite a bit of solo practice yesterday and maybe working on something in particular. I do think if he puts in another solo session today, the obvious thing to work on is the break. That is just not going to cut it at this level. To have 3 dry breaks with your first 3 attempts of the day.
And compounding the issue, the 1 was hanging, the 2 is a formality to middle. The 3's there, 4's over the pocket. Couldn't wish for anything better for Naoyuki Oi. Okay, 5 and 6 are close together, but that's a problem that can be solved.
You've got to say, it's getting to the point of starting to fear the worst for Yapp here. Not only in the match, but in the whole context of this Premier League. Well, he's had 1 win from 7, as we've said. And if he starts today with another defeat, he made a lot of errors along the way, and then he's back on the table in a couple of matches' time to play Oliver Szolnocki, could find himself with a downward momentum that will prove impossible to reverse.
Let me quickly tell you, Kelly Fisher ran out in rack 5, so she trails David Al-Qaedi 3-2. This is the big shot of the rack for me. I think he was just slightly concerned when he first hit the 4. He might have overscrewed. I don't think he has.
Yeah, I think you're right, but this is just the sort of shot which can be a little bit of an examination for a slightly suspect technique.
10 seconds.
Yeah, not too much movement in that one, though, so he's come through the test. Could be on the hill in the next 60 seconds or so. I do think these tighter pockets have made it a much greater spectacle, Phil. Shots that you normally take for granted. Not so. It's making it much more interesting to watch. You're assuming a lot less in terms of what the players are going to do and the balls they're inevitably going to pot.
Well, it's been boom and bust in this match for Naoyuki Oi. Now, though, his stock is rising again. He's 4-2 up, and he's breaking off in rack 7 after the break. Welcome back to Stadium MK. It's the ballroom of this fine facility where we're hosting the Predator Q's Premier League pool. Naoyuki breaking off in the first match of day 3 here on table 1, looking to complete victory. All these matches race to 5, very much a sprint. Now the overhead shot there told us that the 3 ball is proving an inconvenience here in terms of potting the 1. Had to put a lot of side on that. In it goes. 2 over the pocket, 3 in the open. Happy days. Cause Michael for optimism.
Well, we talk so much about the importance of the break. Well, if Oy finishes this out from here, the stats will be damning for Yapp. 3 breaks, all of them dry. Oy, in his 4 breaking racks, will have had 3 breaking runs. Case solved.
It's 4-2, David Al-Kadi now on the other table over Kelly Fisher. Will the nerve hold? The 4 is something of a tester.
Extension, please.
If he can get over the line, Oy, he will move back into the top half of the table.
Yeah, as I was saying earlier, he did start the day in the top 10. If he can stay there, of course, through to Friday night, he'll be in the next phase. So he wasn't in a desperate situation by any means. He just couldn't afford to have another day like yesterday. Well, he's 3 balls away from already having a better day than he did on Tuesday, because he didn't win any matches then. And he's going to win this one now, Phil.
Brave call after he missed the 7 in an earlier rack, but no mistake there. Yes, Japan prevails over Singapore.